Hey everyone, welcome back to Big Strong Book. I'm Reed, and today we are talking about, at long last, On Blue's Waters by Gene Wolfe, the first volume in the Book of the Short Sun. It is great to return to the work of Mr. Wolfe. Great to return to his Sun universe. I don't even know what you would call it. Great to return to this story that began with the Book of the Long Sun tetralogy. It's great to be back discussing these characters, and Book of the Short Sun already. I'm one volume into this trilogy, and it is altogether different from Book of the Long Sun, which was in turn far different from Book of the New Sun. Even though Short Sun here is Long Sun is in a way a distant continuation from New Sun, distant. Short Sun is a direct sequel, and in getting into this, it's so far different. It's both simultaneously almost as frustrating as Book of the Long Sun and Book of the New Sun were, while making a tad more sense, while not trying to figure out, kind of what this will all build to. Who knows? And that's part of the joy of venturing off onto one of these Wolfian journeys. So, again, On Blue's Waters is the first in the Book of the Short Sun series, and at least the main thrust of the narrative starts about 20-ish years or so after the end of the Book of the Long Sun. Now, as I get into this, I should mention that this review will contain spoilers from Book of the Long Sun, because this is a sequel to that, so you've been warned. So again, 20 years after the end of Book of the Long Sun, after a lot of our heroes, our characters, escaped from the whirl, fled the whirl right before Quetzal was going to send them to the Green Planet, and most of them, Horn, who is the narrator and the protagonist of this series, him, Nettle, who becomes his wife, a few others, Remora, I think Incas too, if I'm not mistaken. They end up on this planet called Blue. So there was the Long Sun, the Whirl, which is still, it's very much so a presence, at least if it's, well beyond the stars. And then we have the planet Blue and the planet Green that are part of what Horn refers to as the Short Sun, so an actual star as opposed to a manufactured generation ship sun, but Long Sun, Short Sun. So 20 years later, Horn, Nettle, they've been married, they have a family. They live on this island called Lizard, and there's a town, New Viren, that's close by. And at the outset, Horn is essentially asked and kind of takes it upon himself to go on a quest of sorts, to return to the Whirl, which is the name of the third book in this series, and to try and find and rediscover Patera Silk, who kind of disappeared at the end of Exodus from the Long Sun, and return to the Whirl, find Silk, and bring him back to Blue, because they are a people in desperate need of leadership. Now, leadership is one of the major themes in this book, because, and it admittedly didn't click for me for a while, but this book is written in the first person, like many of Wolfe's works are. So Horn is writing about himself. He is writing in retrospect about this quest. At first it wasn't clear to me, but then it later became clear. And I might be wrong. There might be clues or things I haven't picked up on yet. But it seems... So this... Now I don't want to get... Now, before I get into that, because I don't want to potentially spoil something about On Blue's Waters, Now I'll get back into it. So essentially, excuse me, what Horn is about here is trying to get to the Whirl. Now, this book is all, I mean, On Blue's Waters, the second book, In Green's Jungles, the third book, Return to the Whirl. That gives you, from the onset, that gives you a sense of the direction of where this series will go. We're going to spend time on Blue in this book, and even from the beginning, there's mention of him already having been to the Whirl again, already being on Green again, because he's telling this story long after the fact, similar to, I guess, Severian in New Sun, where he's telling the whole story back as Autarch. And it becomes clear quickly about, like, at least what kind of a man Horn becomes, and that's what is really gripping me in here, is to see where his growth takes him, because I suppose he's a man of regrets when he starts out on his quest to find Silk, and then however long afterwards when he is writing the narrative, the immense regret and the type of regressed human he's become. It's fascinating, but I'll get into that more in a little bit. So, along a lot of this book is it's exploring Blue, but it's also leaning into this conflict of sorts, or this running the humans running up with these Inhumu characters, for which we saw kind of within Long Sun, with Quetzal being in Inhumu in disguise. That was something that is admitted outright in this book. And I will admit, in reading Book of the Long Sun, it never occurred to me. That was just one of the things that went straight over my head, until I started reading this and realized, oh, shoot. So he wasn't Inhumu, and these Inhumu are these, like, flying vampire-type creatures that are native to the planet Green, fly back and forth to Blue, and of course, on his journey to kind of get to this town that has a lander, so it has a spaceship that can hopefully return him to the Whirl, Horn runs across an Inhumu or two, as long as this creature named Babby, another mysterious, almost human, mermaid-esque creature, person that he names Searack. He meets with characters from Long Sun. Maytera Marble, Mukor makes an appearance as well, and there's the hint of our feathered friend Oreb too. So it's hard to categorize this book. It's hard to, like, really get into it, because so much, I should be accustomed to this by now, right? With having read, now I think this is the 12th novel of Wolfe's that I've read, so I've read a dozen of them now. Something that you should be used to by now, if you've read a dozen Wolfe novels, is, especially a multi-part story, is confusion. You're just a third of the way through the story. You're still very confused. You're still wondering, kind of desperately trying to see how all of this will fit together as the narratives from Horn trying to get to this town of Prajku, or Praju, Prajku, I think, to then hopefully get to the Whirl, and then this secondary narrative that really starts to emerge in the back half of this book, the more in the future or present day tense, when he's actually writing the narrative in retrospect. That narrative starts to get more fleshed out. You start to see more, and it's the pain. There's so much melancholy and pain in this narrative that Horn is writing, and so much regret too. And so I'll probably dive into some spoilers now. Might as well, because it's so hard to just kind of dance around everything. So it took a little while, I will admit, probably longer than it should have, to dawn on me just the nature of this aged state that Horn is writing this narrative in, when he is some sort of judge, leader, or like warlord almost, with dozens of wives, and he is brutal in his measure, and he's leading his people to war, but he regrets it, and he wants to get back to Nettle. And there's distance even. It might even. I don't think he confirms that his son, Sinew, that he dies at some point in the future. But it seems like there's just a fundamental distance, and there's a distance between the Horn who wrote Book of the Long Sun and the Horn who is making this journey to the world. The Horn that hopes that he does not have to be responsible for his own actions, that he does not have to be responsible for leading a people, that he is afraid. But now, and just the question that just racks your mind is what happens? What happens on this journey? Because he's telling a little bit, he's foreshadowing things that will happen, I assume, in book 2, and foreshadowing things that I assume will happen in book 3. I assume book 2 documents his journey when he gets, as he's taken essentially prisoner by the Inhumu in a saboteur, subterfuge way at the end of this book. And then he and his son are taken, as essentially as slaves to join the human slaves on Green. And then with book 3 of them, as it is called, Return to the Whirl, I assume that that's what that means. It might not. It might mean he makes it to the Long Sun and then returns to the Short Sun Whirl. Again, there's just so much like constant, both the physical pain that Horn feels when he's like writing and he's running out of paper and he's wounded and all of this, but then just the emotional pain, the emotional trauma of somebody who set out on a quest and seems to have lost everything. Like, he seems to have gained everything from what I assume, and who knows if he's even telling the truth, right? Of characteristic of Wolfe's protagonists, they seem to leave a lot out of their narratives. But if he seems to have gained all this great material wealth, or if he's using all of this, it seems to just try to get back to Nettle, which he kind of does at the end when he kind of snakes his way out of his new adopted land and is trying to get back to Nettle and reunites with Oreb. And of course, that was a great moment when Oreb returned, Bird is back, and that was lovely. But then still the unknown of, okay, Silk, what's going to happen with that? There's implying almost that Silk is dead, but he might not be dead in this future point. And then the presence of Evensong, Horn's one of his many wives, who is also making this journey with him. And then the presence of the Inhumu and their secret that Crate tells to Horn that is not quite clear yet, or maybe it is clear in a subtle way in this book, and I didn't pick up on it, but who knows? And I honestly don't know if there's much more I can say about this book other than now with that the future narrative, or what I assume is the future narrative, has really progressed, and it's now he's getting closer to Nettle, and that has become fleshed out in its own right. And then we're starting to see the past narrative and the future narrative slowly start to build together, if indeed they are Horn in both times, and a past and a future that are slowly starting to merge together. I mean, it's the start of a enriched epic, and it's so much different than any. It's written with the pain of the Wizard Knight. It's that type of pain. Book of the New Sun doesn't. It has pain of Severian writing, but it has a lot of confusion in that, and there's not so much confusion in this as there is regret and disappointment in oneself. That is key. Horn is that type of just of sorrow that he feels is just so evident. So that type of character work, which Wolfe is always good at, just trying to like making both puzzling and engaging and near and far at the same time, it's great. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes, and hopefully things become clearer in book two. They may not, but I'm along for the ride. So, yep, On Blues Waters. If you have read it, let me know what you think. And as always, I will see you guys next time.